daily deep dive into everything Utah Jazz.
It's time!
All season long and even in the offseason, it's Jazz Daily with JJ and Alex on your exclusive home of Utah Jazz basketball. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it! Basketball, gimme the ball because I'm gonna dunk it! Yeah! Basketball, gimme.
All right, everybody, welcome back. JJ and Alex, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Alex Curie, Jeremiah Jensen. We are at the Ultimate Sports Bash. You knew this was going to happen, JJ. I'll tell you what people start getting off work maybe a little bit early, start rounding their kids up to come to the Ultimate Sports Bash, and it's been awesome.
Just look at all the big names we've had on our show already. We got more coming up.
Yeah, look.
And if you're looking for something to do on a Friday night, just come down here to the Sports Bash. It's going on tomorrow as well. So.
It is going on tomorrow, and awesome panels. Like we just, Coach Witt got off the stage as soon as Coach Witt was done. Then it went. Then you had Britton Covey and Jaron Hall. They came on our show.
We just had a bunch of kids get autographs with Jaron and Britton. So
I know.
Cool.
My favorite was they ended up getting pictures with us. I was like, no.
I think you don't want us in
Please
that picture.
Please no. So it's one of these things that it's been a fun thing for us so far. I hate to be cynical about it, but there's a couple $100 in the pocket of each of these players that come, right?
I hope so.
I would assume that they're getting them here, and
I hope so,
and getting them paid because I'm not saying like your Jaron Halls and your
great.
Britton Coveys,
Well, yeah, they're
sure
professional athletes, but I love that we're in a day and age where these college athletes can benefit from their talent and the entertainment that they give us
for sure
each and every Saturday during the fall.
Our program brought to you by G2G Bars. All natural ingredients and no preservatives make the G2G Bar perfect for anybody who needs a quick, tasty, nutritious boost. And we're going to jump into the cut right here, and we're going to talk with our own Ben Anderson, of course, who we've been able to chat with quite a bit this week, and it's all been football-based, so we're going to jump in to the basketball side of things. Let's get to the cut right now.
It's time for the biggest story of the day. This is what made the cut with JJ and Alex on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.
Ooh, for an incredible selection of Kia, Subaru, Chevy, Jeep, Dodge, or Ram, visit Doug Smith Dealerships in American Fork and Spanish Fork. They bring you the cut this hour. Great service starts with know-how, and nobody knows like Doug and Doug Smith Dealerships. Ben Anderson joining us on the show. Ben, we've been able to hang out and talk about football this week and chill out in Vegas. Well, chill out's not the word in Vegas, but we hung out and talked a lot of basketball or a lot of football. Let's talk some basketball. What were your takeaways from the summer league, and what takeaways do you normally want to get out of a summer league?
I generally try to not draw too much. I mean, I think you can tell some guys quickly if they're going to be a disaster, if they just don't belong at all, and you see that sometimes. There are some guys who struggled really badly early on in their careers and went on to be okay, and there are guys like Trey Burke who, really struggled his first summer league. Howell Neto was drafted that same year, came in. His first game, he just looked much better, and truthfully, I mean, I think that kind of followed them throughout their NBA career. So it's not always indicative of what they're going to turn into, but I think you do certainly like it when guys play a little bit better. So if you're a Jazz fan, I think you can feel pretty good about how Isaiah Collier's played so far compared to, I guess, how he played at USC and maybe some of the expectations for him.
Let's start with Keyonte George. 2 games out of the 3. Now he's done. So we saw what we needed to see from him. 30 points in those 2 games. What are your thoughts on what Keyonte showed in Summer League? What's the improvement? What do you see was different?
I thought it was tough for him because, what could he have done to show us something we didn't know? We know he can score 30. Right. He's done it in an NBA game. So did he have to score 50? If he did, we would say, well, okay, he's too good for the Summer League, which is what we took away of these last 2 games that we saw him play is, oh, yeah, he's just way better than everybody else out there, so we didn't really learn a whole lot. And then it's like, well, he has 5 turnovers. It's like, okay, were his teammates in the wrong place? Was it just him dribbling into the wrong areas? Because those were issues for him late in last season. So that didn't really get addressed. He shot really poorly his first game. Was that just first game jitters? He shot really well his third game. But we've seen him kind of have those ups and downs normally. So I thought the hard part for Keyonte was it was a bit of a lose-lose situation. And He did everything you wanted him to do, and he got shut down. He didn't get hurt, so I guess maybe that's the biggest victory. But you did want to see him dominate scoring, and he did. So good, and I don't think it necessarily ups the expectation or changes any expectations for him going into next year, other than he did exactly what he was supposed to, and now doesn't have to play Las Vegas.
The other thing that we found out today, of course, is that Johnny Juzang gets a 4-year, $12 million deal with the Jazz. That's an investment on a guy who they've already really wanted to see that development on. How far has Johnny's development come, and what does that mean for the role he might play going forward with this Jazz team?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. If we remember Johnny's story, after 2021, he's probably the best player on the team that goes to the Final Four at UCLA. Had he declared,
Right.
He would have been a first-round draft pick. He decides to go back to school. UCLA falls apart. He has a bad year, and he goes undrafted. I mean, it was a disastrous turn for a guy who should have been a first-round pick. And now you look at what he did last year where, it was only 8 points a game and a couple of rebounds and an assist, but his last 17 games, he's really in the rotation. He shoots 43% from the three-point line on 4 attempts per game. That's an NBA player. And I went back and read some of the stories I'd written about him throughout the year, and it was just kind of you see this growth of like, oh, it's interesting, Johnny Juzang's going to be in the rotation, and Justin Zanuck said that after the trade deadline, and everyone kind of rolled their eyes at, like, you didn't trade Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji to give Johnny Juzang a look. You wanted to see Taylor Hendricks and Bryce Sensabaugh. And then 2 weeks later, it was like, Johnny Juzang has a career night. And then 2 weeks later, it was, how many teams are going to try and chase Johnny Juzang in the offseason? So he really did establish himself throughout the year and really late as an NBA player. So to get him at $12 million, a $3 million a year average, I would be surprised if all of 4 of those years are guaranteed. In fact, the last 2 might not even be guaranteed, but we obviously haven't seen the details yet.
Sure.
I think that's a pretty good deal, and I think that's a worthwhile investment on a younger player with good size who does the one thing you have to do right now to be a good player in the NBA, and that's shoot the ball.
And if it wasn't working out, they could have easily bailed on him. They see something that they feel like they can do a little bit more long-term.
Yeah, I like the deal. I think it's team-friendly. I think it's great for Johnny, so I look forward to that. Walker Kessler, also done in Summer League. I think we were all shocked that he was actually in Summer League. What are your thoughts on what he showed in Summer League?
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was nice to see him rebound the ball well and kind of do some things, even though he didn't score, and still stay engaged. He was only 2 of 7 in his last game, but still was out there trying to get rebounds, trying to help the team, and I thought he did. And game 1 was hard. He had to play against Zach Edey, and I know people are going to say, oh, he's not as good as Zach Edey, and the truth is he might not be. He might not be as good as Zach Edey, who was a number 9 overall pick and has pretty big expectations on his shoulders. But certainly nobody's going to be able to guard Zach Edey one-on-one, especially when you don't have anyone around you who has any idea as a guard or a wing how to help on a player of that size. That won't always be the case in the NBA. You'll get smarter players, faster players coming over to help rotate and, box out, and put a body on him. All the things you need to do to be successful against a player that big. So while he wasn't fabulous in that game, I think he still had 5 blocks. So he still does a lot of the Walker Kessler things. You can look at the numbers last year that he had. He's still one of the best rim protectors in the NBA. It's something the Jazz desperately need. So there's value there. I think it's going to be about whether the buy-in comes back and the energy comes back. And I think the fact that he did show up for Summer League was a good sign and a step in the right direction.
I thought it was interesting. He's obviously got value around the league. There's rumors out there that teams have been calling the Jazz and making offers. We heard about the Knicks being in discussions. What do you make of all that? And does it say a lot that the Jazz turned down a lot of those offers and he's still on the roster?
Yeah, I'll be curious, if we find out what those offers actually were and how heavily protected some of these first-round picks apparently were offered for him. Danny Ainge and Justin Zanuck showed that they were willing to move on from Ochai Agbaji a year early and bet that he doesn't pan out versus waiting a year too long. And maybe they will do that same thing with Walker Kessler. It's still a lot of time left in summer. I think we feel like, there's that initial rush of free agent signings and deals, and that's it. NBA season doesn't start until October, so we got a long time for the Jazz to sit. They don't have to trade Walker, but if someone gets closer to the season and they don't end up getting a big man that they want, maybe they say, hey, we need a Walker Kessler type, so they go and they make that type of trade. I wouldn't rule that out still potentially happening, but the Jazz don't need to feel anxious in making any moves for something like that, especially for a first-round pick that won't materialize for a couple of years, if not next year. There's no rush to get that done. You can always hold on to Walker, and I don't think he's going to lose a lot of value throughout this year, because if he had the season he had last year, which I thought was pretty poor, and is still getting first-round picks offered for him, I can't imagine he gets worse this season.
Well, it seems the more that we keep trying to put those Lauri Markkanen rumors to bed, the more that they just kind of keep popping up periodically. And is that something that, I feel like a guy like Lauri Markkanen doesn't get shaken by much, but your name being in the American press as much as it is about trades and trade rumors and things, how much of that actually is a legitimate kind of rumble typically per your experience? And what is it of just like a bunch of people saying, well, Lauri Markkanen is one of the better guys out there, and the Jazz need to get better somehow, so maybe they're willing to deal him? Which one of those is more true?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult situation because the Jazz can't do anything with him until August 7th or August 6th. They can't even sign him to his contract extension. So that's really difficult to just basically have him sitting out there in the wind, and they just legally can't do anything because it has to be 3 years after he signed his last deal before he can get an extension. So I'm sure they've told him exactly how much money they can offer him. I'm sure his agents know what that would look like. But there's nothing they can do until we get to that August 6th date, which is quickly approaching. But while that's happening, I'm sure every other team in the NBA has called and tried to see what his availability was. I did think it was telling that the three teams that we really heard involved were Golden State, Sacramento, San Antonio. There was a week where felt like it was at a fever pitch, and then a couple of days later, all three of those teams made separate moves, either by adding Harrison Barnes or DeMar DeRozan or Shake Milton, going out and signing players for somewhat significant money. Kyle Anderson to the Golden State Warriors. I really think they called the Jazz. They said, this is our best offer, and the Jazz said, you're not close, and they moved on. and that could still change, but sure. I thought it was a little bit too coincidental to have those be the three teams that emerge, and then they make three of the kind of later moves in free agency to add depth and eat up a lot of salary. So I really kind of think they just realized, that's too steep of a price. We can't get into the Lauri Markkanen business.
So after watching Cooper Flagg play against Team USA, should the Jazz go all in on 2025 and put their name in the hat there? He was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and look, if I were to say, hey, last year the Jazz traded Kelly Olynyk and Simone Fontecchio, guys who they could have re-signed this offseason and could have kept depth there, and then they haven't done a single thing to replace them other than draft young players. The only thing they've done in free agency is re-sign Johnny Juzang and add Drew Eubanks, who's a third-level center. It's pretty clear what the Jazz are doing, and they're saving all their money to sign Lauri Markkanen. They're not putting more veterans on this team, so they're not trying to get better. The Jazz are absolutely going for Cooper Flagg. It's just that is what is happening. Every sign they have made, every move they've made over the last 6 months says exactly that. They are still deconstructing this roster. They're now getting bottom. They didn't want to just have a fire sale and give away everybody. They wanted to get future first-round draft picks for their veteran players, and they sat on them until they could get them. And they're positioning themselves to have a high pick in this draft, and I think they're going to be. And I know a lot of Jazz fans probably don't want to hear that, but they've shown an ability to drop a lot of games in succession late in seasons, and I would suspect it just starts a little bit before the trade deadline this year. And they're going to be one of the 5 or 6 worst teams in the NBA, and they're going to have an ability to hopefully move up in the lottery or just get one of the other guys that falls. And this is one of those drafts where it's not just Victor Wembanyama at the top and a couple of good names. There's a lot of expected franchise-changing pieces that you then team with Lauri Markkanen. You spend some money in free agency next summer, and you move forward.
What's funny about that is I just pulled up the Pistons record this year. I can't remember how many they had lost in a row. Ben, do you remember off the top of your head? Was it 27?
28, 29, something like that.
Yeah. Well, they were 14 and 68, and they ended up with the 5th overall pick in the draft. So, I'm sure there you go. I'm sure Adam Silver was laughing himself to sleep at night when you have teams that are that bad, not even getting close in the lottery. And so that's why they do it, though, so teams don't just go full on into the tank mode. But there's that anticipation to just be like the way you play the game is you just have to be one of those bottom 4 and give yourself the best chance to be in that conversation. I just don't know. I don't know, for fans, what's the thing that ends up being exciting then to kind of watch with this team, and what are some of the developmental things that they should actually have their eyes open for?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the reasons Jazz fans have had a hard time over the last 2 years is that it's just kind of they've been doing two things. they've got all these young players that fans want to see, but they keep playing these veterans. You know, they had to play Mike Conley. Well, you can't just bench Mike Conley. You can't just bench Kelly Olynyk. You can't just bench Malik Beasley and Jared Vanderbilt. This was 2 years ago. This year, Simone Fontecchio had some value. He showed it. You got a 32nd overall pick for him, a borderline first rounder. And so I guess in a sense, you know, if you say he helps you win too many games, maybe. It's possible he did. He also got you this pick that's Kyle Filipowski, and we'll see if he turns into anything. But it's hard to not play veterans when they're on your roster. And then, as we were just talking, the Jazz didn't bring in those veterans. You know, they didn't replace those guys. So even if you hold on to Jordan Clarkson and Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen, there's just not a lot of depth pieces that you have to play. And you can just throw Taylor Hendricks out there, and you can throw Bryce Sensabaugh out there. And, of course, Keyonte George is going to be a major part of the conversation, and Walker Kessler. And now Cody Williams, Isaiah Collier, Kyle Filipowski perhaps, maybe Johnny Juzang. And you just let those guys play a lot and lose a lot, and that ideally gets you that top draft pick. So I do think what fans will enjoy, though, is a little bit of a clearer direction of, hey, you are going to see the young players. You're not waiting 40 games to see Taylor Hendricks or Bryce Sensabaugh like you had to last year.
Ben Anderson, KSLSports.com is where you can read his byline. He's the best Jazz insider in the market. And you can, of course, hear him with Jake Scott, as it's the Jake and Ben portion of our programming during the day, 10 to noon, right here on the KSL Sports Zone. Ben, get out of here. Enjoy your weekend, man. Thanks for taking some extra time for us.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys. We'll see you.
There you go. Ben Anderson, everybody. Hey, we're going to take a break when we come back. We just keep playing the hits here, man. We just keep getting guys rolling through. This time, former University of Utah wideout Kenneth Scott going to join us next. So stay right here with us. More to go. 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.